This is the story of Carcerian Levandian, who after falling in battle against a god, finds himself reincarnated into the body of a weak boy. Now burdened with that boy's responsibilities, he has to start again from zero to obtain his original power as a sword god. Monsters infiltrated the world, plunging humanity into despair. People fought until their last breath to protect the place they called home. Among those brave souls was the protagonist of this story, Carcerian Levandian, who stood against the menace with unyielding resolve. For many years he battled countless monsters, piling up corpses with nothing but the blade he carried, and without a trace of fear in his heart. Then, one fateful day, he faced Aaron's sworn brother. The battle was brutal, but Levandian eventually struck him down. Yet, in the aftermath, he too fell in battle. But fate wasn't finished with him. As his soul drifted through an endless void, he encountered a human boy from a distant planet called Earth. The boy's name was Settle Dolgen, and he was on the brink of death for reasons unknown. Before dying, he wished to make a final request of Levandian, but the warrior immediately refused, unwilling to hear it. After all, he just wanted to rest in peace. He had lost his country to monsters, lost his loved ones, and died a wretched death. Still, Settle Dolgen wasn't asking for his own life. Though he no longer wished to live, he desperately wanted his family to have a peaceful one. Hearing this, Levandian finally paused and listened. The boy's eyes lit up with a spark of hope as he mustered the courage to ask. He wanted his family to live in peace, and so Levandian accepted. The warrior awakened on Earth, inhabiting the body of the teenage boy Dolgen. Now, his mission was clear: to protect Settle Dolgen's family. His first step led him to infiltrate Namsen Gate, a C-rank dungeon. Entry was restricted to registered heroes, but the automated system kept demanding an ID card he obviously didn't have. Without hesitation, he forced his way inside, setting off alarms that blared about an unauthorized intruder. Once inside, he wandered through the dungeon, searching for monsters to slay. That's when he crossed paths with a licensed hero party. With their official gear and authorization, they quickly assumed Dolgen was just a lost kid. Since they were heading toward the exit anyway, they offered to guide him out. But Dolgen's silence was unsettling. His casual clothes, his simple bag, and his demeanor made him look nothing like a hero. Sure, porters sometimes dressed casually, but his appearance was far too plain. Perhaps he was a porter who'd been abandoned by his party, or maybe something else entirely. Finally, Dolgen broke his silence. He admitted he hadn't come with a hero's party. He had entered on his own. One of the heroes sighed, realizing what kind of case this was. He had seen it plenty of times, some naive fool inspired by flashy commercials about heroes, rushing headfirst into a gate. But that kind of recklessness only led to death. The man began lecturing, saying that becoming a hero required certification, training, and proper testing. Rookies should stick to F-rank gates, not recklessly barge into C-rank ones where death was nearly guaranteed. But Dolgen wasn't interested in advice. He coldly declared he didn't need their help. The hero party was stunned by the boy's sharp tone. They had only tried to help, yet he dismissed them without hesitation. A few of them grew irritated, but their leader raised a hand, telling them to let it go. If the kid didn't want help, then so be it. The leader felt confident the boy would eventually learn the hard way why you don't ignore wise counsel. He figured the kid would soon realize how unforgiving these gates were, far different from the TV shows that glorified heroes as if they were divine saviors. Soon enough, Dolgen came face to face with a giant troll staring him down, ready to devour him alive. The monster launched an attack, only to miss and smash the ground, but Dolgen moved so quickly that the troll couldn't even comprehend what had happened. He then balled his fist and delivered a devastating punch strong enough to blow the troll's face clean off. With the monster dead, it was time for loot. First, he grabbed the sword the troll had been carrying. Then, using that same weapon, he dug into its body and extracted a shiny gemstone. It was only a low-grade magic stone, so insignificant that Dolgen never even bothered with them in his previous life. But since he was flat broke now, he had no choice. Suddenly, more monsters swarmed the area, enraged at seeing their comrades slaughtered. Dolgen spun around and hurled the gemstone so fast it literally blew one of their heads clean off. The other two charged in recklessly, practically begging for death. Dolgen was more than happy to oblige. As he tore through them, the scene shifted back to the group of heroes trudging through the dungeon. Their minds were still stuck on the encounter with the young man. The orange-haired woman admitted she was worried about Dolgen's safety, fearing he might end up dead. But the leader reassured her that was highly unlikely. If he was some unauthorized intruder, agents from the control center would eventually find him. Those agents were always B rank or above. And since this was only a C rank gate, there was no way he would die here. As long as the kid didn't recklessly charge into battle, his life wasn't in danger. In fact, the leader assumed the arrogant brat was probably trembling in fear, waiting for the agents to save him. But reality was the complete opposite. Dojin was making monsters tremble. With a single punch, prey dropped instantly. His speed was so overwhelming that enemies couldn't even touch him, let alone crush him under their blades. Appearing behind one, he delivered a kick that demolished its head. With all of them down, he collected another sword and proceeded to harvest the magic stones for himself. After filling his bag, he was ready to leave. Still, he was disappointed with the haul, nothing but low-grade gems, weighing him down like useless junk. Just then, an agent spotted him and called out to his comrades. Before Dojin could fully turn, the suited men fixed him with a cold, sharp glare. They explained they were from the gate control center and demanded to see his hero registration card. If he was unregistered, he would have to come with them to the control center. Dojin didn't respond right away, which only made the agent tense up further. His tone grew even colder as he insisted Dojin cooperate and follow the proper procedures. The only response the suits received was annoyance carved into Dojin's face, the unnecessary drama killing his mood. Fed up, he simply turned to leave. Since words weren't working, the suits threatened to handcuff him if he refused to comply, warning that physical force could be used if necessary. One of the more impatient agents dared to grab his hand, threatening him with the injuries he'd sustain if he resisted, insisting that the responsibility would fall solely on his shoulders. The agent urged that it was in everyone's best interest to settle things with words, not violence. But Dojin had heard enough. He snatched the man's hand back and warned him to stop acting like a thorn in his path. The chilling threat made the agent instinctively flinch, a cold shiver racing down his spine. The other two pulled out their magic-infused batons, grade 4 staffs, powerful enough to subdue an orc, yet far too weak to injure someone like Dojin. With a sharp twist, he forced the agent's wrist back until the man whined in pain. Dojin then issued a final warning: they should leave now if they didn't want to lose the last shred of dignity they still had. Eventually, the duty-bound suits were forced to retaliate with violence. They swung their staffs, trying their best to land a hit, but none succeeded. Dojin retaliated with brutal precision, driving a crushing blow into one man's back before slamming his fist into another's stomach. Finally, he focused on the bespectacled agent, the last one standing. The man tensed, sensing what was about to happen. In an instant, Dojin blurred out of sight, vanishing into thin air. Panic gripped the agent as his target disappeared, only for a sneaky punch to slam into his gut, sending him staggering backward in pain. Fed up with the agent's persistence, Dojin began considering registering as a hero after all. One of the agents assured him that as long as he avoided shady or illegal activities, the control center wouldn't come after him. Curious, Dojin asked about something called a rift, a question that left the agent visibly stunned. Here's the quick context. This world was dotted with countless passages connecting to another realm where strange monsters lived. From the corpses of those monsters came gemstones harvested as valuable energy sources. Because of their importance, the government oversaw these passages to maintain strict control. Government-controlled passages were called gates. Uncontrolled or unsealed passages were known as rifts. Back with Dojin, he found it frustrating that agents followed him everywhere, accusing him of trespassing no matter which gate he entered. The poor agent explained that whenever an unregistered hero entered a gate, the control center was immediately notified and dispatched nearby agents. As for rifts, entering one was far riskier. Unlike gates, trespassing into a rift carried strict punishment, no warnings, no plea bargains. Dojin didn't care to hear more. Grabbing the agent by the face, he flung him aside like trash. By now, the man deeply regretted not calling headquarters earlier. This situation was far beyond his pay grade. As Dojin glanced back one last time, he thought about how pitifully weak the man was. The agent, clutching a fractured arm, shouted empty threats, promising to capture him and throw him in prison. The scene shifted to Gas and Digital Complex. Once a corporate hub, it had become the Hero Complex, a massive building where all trade in magic stones and dungeon spoils took place. These days, it was busier than ever. Dojin entered one of the stores that specialized in buying and selling stones. Behind the counter was a Gen Z clerk scrolling endlessly through social media. When Dojin announced he wanted to sell magic stones, the cunning shop owner immediately began boasting about his business, claiming this branch offered the highest prices in the country. Dojin placed his haul on the counter, a pile of low-grade stones still smeared with monster blood. The owner's face twisted in disgust, but he masked it and proceeded with the transaction. He politely asked if Dojin wanted coffee while the stones were being processed. Soon Dojin sat sipping from a cup while the owner carefully scrubbed the blood off each gem. When the cleaning was done, the owner tallied the haul: 12 low-grade stones, 16 medium-grade ones, plus 5 higher-quality stones. After deducting a hefty 40% commission, Dojin would receive about 5.5 million won. Dojin wasn't happy. It didn't seem fair. He had done all the hunting, risked his life, and spent hours grinding. How could the shop owner think he deserved nearly half the profit? The man smugly insisted he was being generous, charging only 40% when competitors demanded at least 45%. Confident, he even dared Dojin to take his stones elsewhere, claiming no one would offer better. Dojin didn't buy it. He calmly began repacking his stones into his bag. Desperate, the owner grabbed his hand and demanded compensation instead. 30,000 won for appraisal, 10,000 for the coffee, and damages for the towel ruined by blood. Altogether, the man insisted Dojin owed him 350,000 won. Dojin wasn't budging. Seeing his demands ignored, the owner resorted to threats, summoning 3 C-class heroes he kept as guards. The heavy hitters barged in, ready to deal with any trouble. Dojin responded with a cold glare, locking eyes with the owner. Moments later, the scene cut to the shop owner's terrified, sweat-soaked face. His earlier arrogance had crumbled. Dojin had effortlessly dispatched the 3 guards, proving who the real powerhouse was. With the threat eliminated, Dojin calmly negotiated the commission down to 1%. No questions, no arguments. The owner could only nod in fear as the deal went through. Dojin walked out with a fat stack of cash earned through his fists.
Tell him to bring me my money.
When he returned home, his grandmother and younger sister were stunned by the enormous amount of money. Grandma even suspected the bills might be fake. Dojin quickly covered it up with a lie, claiming the money came from lending cash to a friend whose business suddenly thrived. Grandma wasn't convinced her grandson had such a friend, but when Dojin insisted it was a childhood companion, she let the matter drop. Meanwhile, his sister was overflowing with pride, thrilled by the sudden wealth. Dojin, playing the role of a caring Oni-chan, patted her head and gave her hope for the luxurious life ahead. She jumped around joyfully, celebrating their newfound fortune. Watching her, Dojin realized he was making real progress toward fulfilling the dying wish of Seo Dojin, the body's original owner, to give his grandmother and half-sister Yoon-young a safe and happy life. That boy had vanished before Dojin could ever speak to him, and when he awoke, he had become Seo Dojin. Now, his sole mission was to ensure the small family lived safely and comfortably. For that, he had his eyes set on the safest house in Korea, a home worth 110 billion won. For him, making money won't be an issue as long as he regains his original strength. This world shares many similarities with the one he came from, the one that was destroyed. The only major difference is that the rifts, gates, and monsters here are all slightly weaker than those in the world he once saw fall. To him, who once held the title of Sword God in his previous life, this place is nothing more than a sandbox. So far, he's only been fighting at 1/10 of his original power. Suddenly, there's a knock on the door and the visitor says he wants to see Dojin. Bro stands up and decides to answer. As he opens the door, he finds 2 thugs standing outside. These guys are here to claim a debt Dojin supposedly owes an insane 48 million. Seeing this, Dojin's sure these are loan sharks. They're from the company Dojin borrowed money from before he left this world for good. Though the amount was supposed to be just 5 million won, originally for his grandma's hospital bills, these guys are charging absurd interest and demanding 10 times the original amount in no time. They know he's been making money through gates lately, so they want him to cough up the cash since it's all documented in the contract. But the only repayment these bastards get is a jaw-shattering punch straight into the big guy's face. That single blow sends the thug flying, leaving his partner's jaw hanging in disbelief. Our guy then gives the scrawny bastard a deadly stare to remind him that over 9 million won has already been repaid. So if you do the math, they're the ones who should be paying him interest. With another punch that makes the bastard cry like a baby, Dojin tells him to deliver a message to his boss. Dojin is coming for a visit. The scene then cuts to a bustling shopping mall. There we see sweet little Lee Eun-young lighting up in a teddy bear store. Dojin brought her here for a shopping spree. Today she's free to get anything she wants. You know, our boy wasn't always this soft-hearted in his previous life. It's the original Dojin's memories that revitalized his dry emotions. His heart warms seeing how kindly Dojin treated Eun-young even though she's only his half-sister. So now he wants to keep doing the same, giving all the love he can muster for this little girl. The little one finally chooses a stuffed toy she really wants. A small but cute bunny. She picks it modestly, making sure she isn't being extravagant. But Dojin picks an even bigger stuffed toy for her. He doesn't want her to hold back at all. It's her day and she can pick whatever her heart desires without thinking twice about money. They both treat themselves to some good food too. As they enjoy their meal, an unfamiliar voice suddenly calls out our boy's name. It's a middle-aged woman followed by a group of bodyguards. This chubby hag seems like yet another trash talker who loves to hate on our boy. First, she criticizes his lousy sense of fashion. Then she questions the girl sitting next to him. She's bold enough to throw a jab, claiming he must have knocked someone up and had this girl just like how his own mother brought him into this world. Of course, these sharp insults infuriate our boy beyond measure. Meanwhile, Lee Eun-young has no clue who this lady is or why she's trash talking so casually. The woman then promptly turns her attention to the girl and asks her name. The girl introduces herself as Lee Eun-young, which makes this hag realize she's Dojin's sister. Out of habit, the woman throws another jab at her clothes, calling her a mess. She doesn't even spare their deceased mother. All of this is gnawing at our boy's nerves badly. But for some reason he holds it in, refusing to lash out despite her provocations. Even this ugly woman is shocked at how Dojin is keeping his composure, not falling for her traps. So, she decides to go one step further. This vile woman is bold enough to ask a child if she knows the meaning of harlot. Well, that's the last straw. Dojin snaps and calls her an ugly woman from the tribe of orcs. Naturally, the woman is left wide-eyed and speechless, caught completely off guard. Let's add some context to why Dojin tolerated her this long. You see, Dojin was born an illegitimate child and lived in poverty. At the tender age of 7, his mother died and he barely managed to reach his father's house. With his father marrying a new woman, he was shunned by everyone. Things worsened when his father's legitimate wife gave birth to a son, and Dojin was ignored completely. Eventually, he was kicked out of the very house he lived in, so he grew up with his half-sibling at his grandmother's home. As our MC reflects back, he feels pity for the original Dojin, who endured all this pain yet still tried to keep a smile on his face like nothing was wrong. But now he wants to change everything. Seems this woman is his stepsister, which explains why he held back, but he won't tolerate her anymore. He recalls how he once shared a roof with this orc of a woman, and she's just as disgusting as ever. Not only is her personality vile and her appearance orc-like, she's also dumb as a rock. He crushes her spirit further by dropping brutal truths. She's a wreck with an inferiority complex, projecting her insecurities by calling others ugly. She's just a gold digger obsessed with appearances, and that's the reality the world should know. As he continues roasting her mercilessly, the entire shopping mall watches, captivated as though they're witnessing a show. The orc lady is furious and about to lose it, but then Dojin's stepmother arrives. Seeing her mom, the orc lady rushes over like the whiny brat she is, complaining how Dojin just shut her down with words. But her mother is aggravated by the whining and silences her with a cold glare. Not going to lie, bro's stepmother is something else. At first I even thought the fat orc lady was his stepmom. The elegant woman turns her attention to Dojin and greets him with utmost grace, inviting him to return home and spend some time with family. But Dojin knows all too well this facade is fake. After all, she's the one who caused the most misery and unrest during the 12 years he lived with them. She continues bringing up memories Dojin never wants to recall, triggering his PTSD and putting him in full serious mode. With a tone colder than ice, our guy tells her to get lost. That's a major slap to her dignity, being dismissed so sharply by someone younger. She twirls around and leaves with what little dignity she has left. She wasn't expecting him to clap back so hard. She's left wondering if this is really the same boy who used to lower his head even when she slapped him for no reason. Her daughter follows after her, their bodyguards tagging along like NPCs who just watch the main character cook. Let's shift back to our boy. It seems these two women totally ruined the moment he was having with Yoon-young, so he decides to leave as well. His reaction to his step-family was intentional. He wanted to make one thing clear. The weak Dojin who couldn't speak up for himself is gone. It's time his trash family realizes that. We then cut to a Mercedes speeding down the road. Inside the car sit the stepmother and her daughter. The daughter is furious at her mother for leaving quietly instead of putting Dojin in his place. She vents her frustration and curses him for the humiliation they suffered. The mother, however, demands an answer from her manager. Why is Dojin still alive? The bald-headed subordinate has no clue. It doesn't match the reports. The woman snaps, screaming how it's impossible for him to be alive when they made sure the job was done. The poor man assures her he'll look into the matter again, and this time make sure the job is executed properly. Meanwhile, the clueless daughter has no idea what her shady mother has been plotting all along. She's rattled just hearing her mom casually talk about killing. Eventually, the mother poses a question to her daughter, wondering if she has feelings for Dojin. This catches the spoiled pig off guard, making her blush and flustered. No way she has a crush on our MC. Actually, she's just worried about Dojin dying because if grandpa or dad find out, they'll all be in serious trouble. The mother grabs her daughter by the mouth so hard that she silences her, drilling into her to stay the hell away from her business. The mother is dead set on claiming Dojin's life with no plan to spare him, especially not after he dared to talk back to her. Getting rid of him is the best revenge she can think of. A decade ago, the world took a turn into chaos with the appearance of the rift. This terrifying dimension gave birth to monsters spawning from its portal, driven by the single objective of slaughtering humans on sight. Their terror never stopped. It was ceaseless and eventually demolished the world, leaving scars of destroyed cities engulfed in flames. However, just as the dark forces appeared, so too came the light in the form of valiant warriors known as heroes. With their emergence, the first discovery of mana stones was made from the bodies of defeated monsters. Back to the present. Dojin's on the move, reflecting on how mana stones quickly shifted the world's dependence from traditional energy sources. Because of their key role, nations centered their attention on the emerging rifts, essentially staking claim to them so they could extract resources. With the current state of the world, all industrialization is now completely reliant on the concept of gates and the strength of heroes, and because of that, the profession of a hero reaps enormous rewards. A consistent high salary can only be achieved by becoming a proper hero. Dojin arrives at his destination, the Yongjong capital establishment. I know that's a mouthful, but you'll soon see why he's come here. He steps into the building, and at first glance, the boss and his cronies look like your average run-of-the-mill thugs, trying to intimidate people with their ugly mugs. But Dojin stays completely chill about the situation. The boss puts out his cigarette and points out our boy's audacity. Not only did he beat the crap out of his goons, but he also had the guts to show his face at the door. It shows Dojin really doesn't give a flying fudge about anyone. He cleverly tells the organization's owner that in reality it's actually Dojin himself who has suffered the real loss. That statement sounds ridiculous to the boss, so he demands clarification. Dojin explains he's come here to receive his well-deserved compensation. After all, he's endured mental, physical, and material losses because of these clowns. With his strong, serious words, the boss notices one significant change in the boy's personality. Something is different. Dojin is no longer the soft-spoken spirit or gentle soul he once was. Added to that, this same kid destroyed the lackey the boss sent to his door. Naturally, the boss suspects Seo Dojin must have experienced a unique kind of awakening inside the gate. Despite this, the boss acts arrogant, telling Dojin his newfound confidence will become his undoing. The hypocrite accuses him of being overconfident and to back up his claims summons a group of grumpy men to intimidate him. Of course he can pack all the muscle he wants, but compared to the experience of a sword god, they're practically insects. The boss keeps running his mouth, saying that even awakened people end up dying like dead weight, like low-class heroes. The funniest part is that he still assumes Seo Dojin is nothing beyond the level of a D-class hero, and that his organization could easily stomp him. Meanwhile, Dojin lounges on the sofa, calm as ever, while five guys glare him down. Without a shred of hesitation, he orders the boss to sit the heck back down. The boss is astonished at his tone, especially when Dojin emphasizes with a serious face that he's not done talking. Hearing that, one of the men decides to grow a pair and challenge him. Amusingly, Dojin calmly removes his glasses, which only adds to their confusion, and then he gave the guy a Mike Tyson special straight into the guy's face. The poor dude is sent flying from the impact while his friends are struck dumb. But that's not all. The beating continues as Dojin knocks down another thug. Keep in mind, while he's dishing out punishment, he's also calmly making his points. He exposes the boss's secret shady business, operating under the guise of a money-lending firm. He decks an orange-haired punk while pointing out their counterfeit identification racket. Having landed the punch, he tells the boss he's searching for a hero ID to officially register and start making money. When the final guy swings at him, Dojin ducks and counters with triple the force, sending him to sleep. That's how he knocks out the entire group with his own special sleeping routine, works 100% of the time. Dojin presses on with his demands, insisting on a foolproof identification that won't cause him trouble in the future. The boss is left starstruck at what just happened in a matter of seconds. Our boy reminds him that he only has one day to forge it. Some of the men hadn't intervened, which is honestly a compliment, since they're the kind of NPCs who'd usually challenge God at level 1. The boss is tripping hard, re-evaluating Dojin's strength. At the very least, this kid appears to be B-class. He's so lost in thought that Dojin has to snap him out of it. He accepts the job. Finally, Dojin grabs his shoulder politely but contrasts it with an intimidating expression. He wants to know if Hiju, his stepmother, ordered the hit on him. Of course that's exactly the case, as we already know from her earlier conversation with her daughter and assistant. The boss is tongue-tied until Dojin squeezes harder, making him yelp in pain. Even his cronies look helpless for their boss. Also, they should seriously change barbers. Eventually, the boss breaks and reveals her heinous strategy. That cruel, scheming woman wanted to drain Dojin's bank account, forcing him into financial ruin so severe that he'd have no choice but to take his own life. That is the very definition of an evil plan, especially against her own son, even if cast aside. Those were her orders. Dojin listens, and after enough begging and crying, he releases the man, asking if that was also the reason they locked him inside the gate. The boss quickly claims innocence, insisting he had nothing to do with that. He even reveals he wouldn't have been paid if Dojin had died in the gate, which is at least a plausible reason. That alone gets Dojin thinking. He utters the name Kang Cheol, the very man who brought him into the gate in the first place. Effectively, Dojin demands every piece of information about him by tomorrow. With his 2 demands made, he leaves politely, shifting the entire atmosphere of the room compared to when he first entered. After that conversation, Dojin is left in deep contemplation. The real Seo Dojin only ever had one desire. He wanted to protect his little sister and his beloved grandmother no matter what. On top of everything that happened, it just added another layer of misery and showed the kind of life the poor kid had to endure while being helpless. But not to worry, because the sword god was ready to do what he must in order to set the record straight. The following day, guess what? Our boy was officially registered, and he also received a B rank rating, which was convenient, unlike all the other stories where the main character just ends up at the lowest possible rank for style points. Tapping the card on the machine, he proved the card's legitimacy because it synced his identity with the system. However, it warned him that the rank was still lower than the dangerous quest he was about to take. This was actually pretty annoying to our boy, who thought that maybe he should have forced the bastard to assign him a higher rank so that he wouldn't run into these problems. Despite the system's repetitive warnings not to enter a gate far above his level, Dojin didn't care and went in anyway. Let's talk about the specifics of the Night Island gate. It was actually just a B-rank gate, but the logic didn't mean a B-rank hunter could survive it. Heroes were always recommended to be a class higher than the gate rank for mission safety. Anyway, the scale of the dungeon was considered rank D, which meant it was spread out and would be difficult for solo hunting. But the words risk and danger didn't exist in our boy's dictionary. If anything, the worst that could happen was that he'd have to face off against an entire fleet of monsters in a narrow tunnel with little to no room. Dojin smiled at his first opponent, which was a giant serpent with a chaotic purple aura. For most heroes, this would be a sign of terror, but for him it was a sign of good luck as he prepared his gauntlets to get the battle started. Oh, and by the way, the serpent had a bunch of its friends too. Anyway, they did their best to attack, but it was pointless because our boy was such a killing machine that he snatched and collected the mana stones like the monsters never even existed. The Black Killing Viper was a class of monster known for its hyperactive paralysis poison that could knock anyone down even with the slightest contact. With that in consideration, Dojin charged, propelling himself at bullet speed and launched a full swing. In a short span of time, he sliced and diced the creature all over its body, splashing blood until he severed the monster in half. With the creature defeated, Dojin noticed his equipment. The gloves he purchased ensured the poison didn't get in contact with him, and for the price of 300,000 won, they were holding their ground. Returning to the hunting session, Dojin turned his attention to 4 more of these ugly, limbless lizards and began blasting right through their heads with his powerful speed. More and more blood splashed out until the vipers were sent to the afterlife. Dojin stood there, busy searching for a bunch of magic stones by clawing into the monster's flesh. To his disappointment, there weren't any around, but this was according to the rules of the previous world. In that world, these monsters only had a drop rate of 3% for mana stones. This meant he had to hunt down at least hundreds of them for good loot. Walking along, he discovered skeletons lying around. You might think it was the boss, but it's a huge-ass snake. Anyway, Dojin thought it was a good thing this big guy appeared because now he wouldn't have to worry about getting lost anymore. Spiraling into an immediate strike, he planned to end the battle quickly and return home. But then an unexpected thing happened. Despite having successfully landed a brute strike, his punch didn't have any effect on the creature. Bro just gave him a tattoo on the head instead. While he was in the air and unable to dodge, the creature bashed him into the wall with its tail. Dojin sat there, crash-landed. It probably gave him a reality check about the boss monster's strength. The creature whipped out its poisonous fangs and hissed at him like the average girlfriend when she's hungry. It attempted to bite him down, but luckily he evaded. Using the momentum of his evasive maneuver, he bolted right back into motion with a powerful punch that connected with the creature's body and left more cracks against its hard shell. From this second attack, one thing was made clear to him: the boss monster had an unusually tough exterior, making it a greater challenge than the rest of the vipers he had disposed of. The shell was so powerful at his current level that he couldn't penetrate it with one strike alone. This reversed the situation on him, making him question if he should aim for a different battle strategy. At his original strength, the sword god would have mopped the floor with this beast. But then suddenly he noticed something: the sword of the warrior who lost his life fighting the boss. And now you guys are about to know why he's called the sword god and not the fist god. Even though the weapon was extremely worn out after the fight, he grabbed hold of it, believing that a sword was only as competent as its wielder. With that knowledge in mind and the blade armed in his hand, he walked toward the monstrous snake. The creature propelled itself forth to strike him down again, bursting with incredible speed. Dojin responded by leaping high into the air, proudly declaring that the creature should be honored that he was going all out to kill the beast with a sword. Despite the sword's crap condition, this guy unleashed so many flashing cuts in the span of a few strikes that the snake's body was left eviscerated. The serious fight turned into a funny conclusion, with the snake dying in the background while our boy's sword was reduced to dust. It was a good thing he wiped the creature out before the blade gave up completely. With the boss monster dead, Dojin thought of a smart idea that I don't really see many other protagonists implement. He took one of the creature's fangs, believing it could be refined into a nice short sword. Considering this his reward for the journey, he exited the gate. By the time he stepped out, it was already a starry night outside. He had spent more time in the B-rank gate than he thought, and with the way things turned out, it only pushed him further to pursue and restore his strength back to full. He was also a bit happy that his old friends didn't get to see this weaker version of him, because that would have been embarrassing. Back from the hunt, he went to appraise and sell the magic stones. Before him, there was another hero who came to present his great stash of mana stones. The cheap-ass receptionist treated him like crap and pointed out that the commission rate was the same at 40%. Even the innocent guy could sense the scam behind that overly high rate. He even called it out, stating his concerns and calling himself a normal guy. The receptionist, just like he did with Dojin, clarified that their rate was actually the lowest among all the appraisal trades. The gate center's rate was 5%, but that was without taxes. From the perspective of the sleazy appraiser, this was a great deal for heroes to earn good money. The cash was handed to the hero, who didn't really complain much except for concerningly asking about the dude's messed up face. The funny thing was how this guy was still repeating the same script even after getting his face bashed in. Bro played it off, stating that a psychopath first obliterated his guards and then left him with this treatment. The hero thought it was actually the fault of the receptionist for keeping low-ranking guards around at the C-rank level. After all, rank wasn't the only thing that mattered in their world. Skill played a huge role too. Rank was actually a false representation of one's abilities and only updated to keep the system intact. The hero wisely mentioned that people of the same rank had a huge variance in skills and abilities, so they couldn't all be treated the same. The joker of a receptionist just wanted him to stop yapping and leave already, which he did, offering to help the little dude out if he ever needed something. As he left, our boy walked right past him, looking as cold as ever. Upon seeing him once, the receptionist flinched and bugged the hell out. He pointed at Dojin, shouting that this was the psychopath that made a mess out of him. Turning back to face them both, the hero was actually pretty impressed. He noticed our boy's lean physique for his height. Still, the fact that he made a mess of the guards spiraled the man to gear up for a fight, questioning if he was the troublemaker. The one thing I liked about this guy was that he wasn't offended over petty reasons. He genuinely believed that Dojin was misusing his powers as a hero by bullying civilians in his normal life. The receptionist enjoyed the show, knowing this guy was actually a 7-year veteran hero. If something happened here, the man had plenty of connections he could use to drag Dojin down by name. Without giving a damn about who he was, our boy turned back and simply told the boomer to piss off. This only provoked the guy further because now it really looked like Dojin was challenging him. Dojin asked if the guy was looking for exact revenge. Hearing those words, the veteran hero was provoked. However, being a responsible hero and with all his experience, he knew it was unwise to take battles against other heroes, as it almost always resulted in deaths. It's actually an even higher rate of death than a fight against monsters. Recalling that fact, Dojin calmly turns his back, leaving the receptionist speechless. Dojin turns to the sleazy appraiser and asks if he's got a problem he wants to bring up. Before the guy can answer, he tosses a bag full of magic stones to appraise and convert into money. These precious shiny stones are all high-grade magic stones, which really begs the question of who this guy really is from the receptionist's perspective. After calculating, the total comes to 150 million. It seems like a lot at first glance, but to Dojin it's far too little for a single day's worth of hunting. He asks for the cash, but the receptionist reminds him of the commission rate they need to calculate beforehand, which draws a scary look from our boy. Remembering that the rate is only 1% in their deal, he cools down and tells the guy to hand over the rest of the amount. Inside the mind of the hilarious appraiser, he wants to beat the hell out of the guy for having so much audacity, but that's only in his imagination. Speaking of which, the receptionist explains that there has to be approval from upper management for such a huge amount. Without wasting another breath, Dojin demands that he get the approval immediately. The guy quickly phones his boss, whispering the details of the situation. But before he can smoothly wrap up a deal, Dojin snatches the phone and directly tells the boss to hurry up with the payment. The boss is fine with doing so but asks for the phone to be handed back to the employee. Returning it with pleasure, Dojin accidentally smashes the phone into the wall. The employee trembles at the sight of his shattered device as Dojin instructs him to quickly prepare the money now that things are cleared up. And that's how the receptionist prepared numerous bags full of cash for the transaction. By the end, the guy is left devastated at being forced in such a way. Maybe you feel pity for him, but remember, he scams nearly half of what ordinary heroes earn after risking their lives. He's a scumbag. 10 minutes later, the boss storms into the store, enraged that his employee wasn't answering the phone. The hilarious part, the receptionist immediately throws in the towel and resigns on the spot. The boss then sees the smashed phone on the wall, giving him a clear idea of what went down. Seeing this, he pulls out his own phone to call Julian, requesting that she come at once. Julian appears as a famous young woman with striking purplish-pink hair. She's so recognizable in public that people cheer her name, Hunu Julian, treating her like a celebrity. Not to mention, she looks stylish as hell in her outfit. She arrives at the store, stunning the receptionist with her presence, greeting him with a smile. There's a big reason why everyone's making such a fuss about her. She's the country's 4th S-rank hero, nothing short of amazing. Rumors have spread that she's the niece of the boss, but he still questions what she's doing here. Confirming the claims, Julian explains that she came on behalf of her uncle's request to deal with a reckless hero. Intrigued, the stylish S-ranker sits down, ready to hear what's going on. In the next scene, we find our boy with his absolutely ripped body meditating in the sun. It's true that he's been hunting all day, and yet the rewards he reaped weren't amazing. With things going this way, he's worried about the future. First and foremost, he needs to reach a level where he can clear S-rank gates on his own. That means training to restore his original strength. Dojin's biggest challenge in this current life is that unlike his previous world, the mana density here is thin. Even if he does his best to gather mana at his current rate, it will take at least 3 years to come close to his original strength. Longer if things get rough. On the bright side, he could aim for better battle equipment. But the issue is that even the worst equipment costs hundreds of millions, making it a waste of money. Suddenly, a chill runs down his spine as he senses a dangerous presence. Fixating his sight on Lee Eun-young, he grabs the little girl at full speed and demands that everyone go inside immediately. Back inside, he shuts the room as his grandma anxiously questions what's happening. The entire structure shakes with a loud quake, making his grandmother flinch and ask in terror if it's an earthquake. Little Lee Eun-young panics, but the truth is something only our boy knows. This isn't just an earthquake, it's something else. Dojin senses the sharp, violent energy outside. A rift has just cleaved open into their world, manifesting directly on top of their house. Rushing to handle the problem, he tells his loved ones to stay inside as the situation outside is too dangerous. At full speed, he cuts toward the entrance of the rift, the last thing he hears being the cries of his grandma and his sister calling out his name. The scene switches to the Seoul Hero Association, where members are immediately alerted to the sudden emergence of a rift over the Mapo region. It appeared just 63 days after the last one. Realizing that the White Lion Guild is the closest to Mapo, the manager instructs his staff to contact the guild and alert nearby heroes to contain the situation. Upon closer inspection, he discovers the rift appeared on top of a residential home. This is a tricky situation because if a civilian enters the rift, they're practically guaranteed death. Not to mention, the rift won't allow anyone else to enter afterward, and if the person inside dies, it will trigger a monster wave in 10 days, wreaking havoc on the region. The wave would become so uncontrollable that Seoul's safety would be fully jeopardized. The manager is curious about the person who entered the rift. Turns out they know Seo Dojin has taken action as he's the resident of the home. According to his grandma, he entered to protect his family. From this, they assume he isn't a hero, which complicates matters because the chances of an ordinary civilian returning from a rift are nearly impossible. This leaves the entire staff in despair, helpless to act. The next scene shows Dojin's furious stepmother, Hee-ju, seething at the news of his awakening. She can't believe it. Her assistant reports that while he hasn't officially registered with the Hero Association, they've confirmed he awakened from his last gate experience. This frustrates her because Kang Cheol was supposed to finish the job but instead made her target stronger. Enraged, she smashes her fist on the table, questioning why they couldn't manage to kill him themselves. The fact that they also took money for a failed job only fuels her anger. Roaring at manager Lee, she declares her frustration with Kang Cheol, sending him a message if he doesn't kill Dojin personally, he'll owe her 10 times the amount in return. But to her surprise, her assistant reveals they may not even need to contact him anymore. A new rift has appeared directly on top of Dojin's house, and since he entered, it's almost certain he won't make it out alive. Hee-ju is delighted, calming down as she orders the assistant to monitor the situation until more news arrives. Meanwhile, our boy has just arrived in the rift's domain. It's a forest, specifically the forest of Petishua, the same place he once enjoyed in his youth. The forest is recreated exactly as he remembers, even the rich mana inside carrying the same weight. Following the path, he smiles at the sight of the mighty world tree. This divine tree exudes pure mana, the very core of the world's stability. When the old world fell, it began with this tree being incinerated, forever disrupting the flow of mana. But here in this rift dimension, the tree remains intact, exactly as he remembers it. Though unaware of the cause, one thing is certain: he has a chance to reclaim the mana he lost by absorbing it from the tree. Meditating beneath its excellent flow of mana, our boy's strength becomes clearer and clearer. He spent more than 3 days sitting exactly like this, forgetting to eat, drink, or even tend to his bodily needs. 10 whole days passed, and all he could focus on was harmonizing his breathing. By the end of the 10th night, trouble came looking for him and disrupted his meditation. These alien-like creatures are called the Volcana, and they've come to burn the tree just like they did in the past. Only this time, our boy is there to prevent the tragedy from happening again. The creatures lunge forward to attack him while Dojin regrets not having a water element sword to wipe them all out with ease. The burning monsters roar as they make their way toward him, but our boy is overflowing with mana now, so much so that he no longer cares about a weapon. He himself is the weapon, and those hands are rated E for everyone. Extending his hand toward the monsters, he exerts so much authority from his mana alone that it knocks one of them down. The second creature is stunned by his ability. Let's break down what just happened. What he used there is called mana release, and it's not exactly telekinesis. It's a blaster type attack that detonates raw mana as a strike. It had been a long time since he used this ability in such a way, considering he had been low on reserves all this time. Anyway, the Volcana creatures aren't done yet. To retaliate, they release charged blasts from their mouths. These pulsing laser beams shoot straight toward our boy, who appears calmer than ever. His mana alone is enough to shield him from damage. Stepping toward the creatures ignited with a burst of mana, he remarks that he's finally protected the world tree. Now he's ready to play around a bit and enjoy the fruits of his training. The ugly bastards prepare another energy blast attack, but our boy quickly catches two of them and forces their mouths shut. Their own attack builds up inside until it explodes, leaving behind a headless corpse of flames. The bodies wither away, dropping two valuable magic stones for him to claim, but that's only a couple of them down. Dojin is ecstatic, thrilled to unlock something called the Eternal Ember. After defeating these monsters, joyfully cutting his way through and smacking them down with a grin, he's finally glad to steal a massive load of mana stones from them. The one-sided slaughter continues until he wipes out every last one. Dojin has basically hit the jackpot with how many stones they're dropping. Among them, he also discovers a small coin or seed glowing gold. This is the Eternal Ember, which he picks up in his hand. With this, he regains control of even more of his power as he crushes the ember and unlocks its flames. Normally, the ideal strategy here would be to keep absorbing mana from the world tree. However, his body has already reached its physical limit for mana absorption. The second method is absorbing the ember itself, which completely alters the state of his mana, transforming it into fire mana. And he does exactly that as his body erupts with a rush of flame energy. In his previous life, he had no need for this and ignored the Eternal Ember entirely. But now it's required for him to absorb them fully, and it takes about 10 minutes just to complete one. Luckily, he's collected a whole batch, so his goal is to absorb as many as possible. Meanwhile, the appearance of the rift sparks public interest. Reporters swarm around his house while agents and association staff protect the area. Bang Xianggu is furious at one man's arrogance for entering the rift prematurely. Then we meet another key figure, Kim Hyun, our protagonist with blue hair. He sympathizes with Dojin's decision to save his sister, but Xianggu doesn't buy it. Instead, he accuses Dojin of rushing in like a greedy fool, ignoring the consequences. If Dojin were to die in the rift, the entire place would become a detonation ground for monsters to pour out. That's the real issue. Kim Hyun asks for Gilma's input, but apparently Gilma has decided to just stick to protocol. Kim Hyun also questions the recent rise of rifts appearing across the globe in places like the US, China, Switzerland, Turkey, and the UK. Gilma is having a hard time managing them all at once, especially since this phenomenon doesn't happen every day. Some nations easily contain the threat, but South Korea is facing a disaster all thanks to one man. Xianggu is so pissed that he wants to beat the crap out of the guy inside and is begging the rift to spit him out already. Speaking of the gargantuan Purple Gate, 28 days have passed since its first appearance. The same amount of time Dojin has been inside. The Hero Association is panicking, already classifying the threat as a level 1 wave. Dojin's identity hasn't been revealed yet for privacy reasons, so the public only knows him as an ordinary person. But while the world is clueless, the boss of a money-lending organization catches on quickly. His assistant confirms the report, verifying Dojin's involvement. Kim Eon, the right-hand man of the president Wang Chang, is curious about Dojin's chances of survival. The assistant claims that an ordinary person has less than a 1% chance of survival, but the mere mention of Dojin as ordinary makes Chang laugh. After all, that same ordinary person put his men in the hospital and left them bandaged for weeks. From the world's perspective, they're vastly underestimating him. Chang then asks about the survival chances of an awakened individual. For that, his assistant explains it depends on the hero's level, making it hard to judge without proper data. Even Chang admits that combat ability differs from survival ability, and a rift makes things far more complicated. But one thing is certain, the bastard hasn't changed his ways. Chang wants to protect Dojin's family, but not for noble reasons. Nah, this scumbag intends to sell the organs of his loved ones in case he doesn't make it back. And even if he does, he's going to pin the blame of debt on him for taking care. This guy is the embodiment of a leech. The scene transitions to the mesmerizing world tree. Here, our boy is going full speed into his training arc as his body is now thriving with flame mana. He doesn't even know how much time has passed, but he's been grinding by absorbing hundreds of the fire stones. With this, he's acquired so much fire mana that he can use it and manipulate it in any way he deems fit. Not to mention, his resistance to the flames has increased as a side effect. Comparing his past self with his current self on the basis of fire attribute alone, he thinks he's surpassed his past self in a small capacity by mastering this ability. Embracing the world tree, he shares a tender moment with it. It's always served him in the time of need, even in the past and even now. Because of that, Dojin is grateful for everything it has done for him. As for his mana stones, he's made up a small bag using vines to store them all. With the stones collected and stashed, Dojin fully understands that he'll probably never get to see the angelic tree again. But even still, he's hoping for their paths to cross if the divine tree ever finds itself in danger, because when that happens, he will be ready to protect it with his life. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I really, and I mean really, enjoyed this gentle scene. That night, Dojin finally steps out into the outside world, emerging from the rift as a whole. Luckily, he doesn't sense anyone to be around. Suspecting that most people probably thought he already died inside and that a monster wave would pop out at any time. However, he does detect the presence of someone strong nearby. Deciding to chase them down, he rushes to find the source. Shortly afterwards, he stumbles across the two agents, one pissed off and the other relaxed, both Kim Hyun and Seon-gu from last time. Now he understands that these guys probably represent the association from their outfit alone, which means in the off chance he gets caught, things will get really problematic. To combat that issue, he whirls up a ball of flame and chucks it into the air with a forceful lunge. That attack winds up finding its way across the building, resulting in a loud explosion upon detonation. Both Kim Hyun and Seon-gu were on red alert the moment they heard the crashing sound. Realizing that it's actually fire, they decide to chase after it. There they discover a bunch of people standing in horror. Seon-gu questions what the hell is going on in the chaos. Meanwhile, our boy is impressed with his flame powers so far. Its precision is good, so it will do him wonders. In the memory of his old friend called Tusk, he wonders if the mage would be impressed by his current level of flames. After all, Tusk was known to be the strongest fire mage on the continent, and they shared a good bond. Suddenly, Kim Hyun's sharp senses alert him to look for the rift. It appears to be acting up, and right before their eyes, it disappears into the mist. Both of the agents rush to the site to see what's going on. When they arrive, they can't believe that the rift's connection to their world is no more. As for our boy, he's just making his way to his next destination without any problems. News breaks out the following morning concerning the state of the rift that lasted for a month in Mabo. It is announced that the rift disappeared 29 days after Seo Dojin entered the zone, proving the concerns of the Hero Association to be wrong about the monster wave. They have no idea about the unexpected disappearance of the rift, and they're currently investigating what went down. They also have trouble dealing with the cause of the fire that broke out at the time of the rift's disappearance in a junkyard. Now this leads most people to believe that Seo Dojin is dead, and that this is just the consequence of his own actions. Unbeknownst to them, our boy is hidden in plain sight, observing the conflicting opinions of the people, as some are sympathizing with the boy who lost his life. Unfortunately, the disappearance of the rift is devastating news for our MC. He's heartbroken that he can't interact with the World Tree anymore. Even though he can't protect the World Tree, there is still one other thing he can protect in his life. This brings us right back to the HCS capital. Inside, the idiots are busy celebrating the death of Dojin, believing they can easily get rid of the old granny and his sister afterwards. Changs is just the kind of guy to squeeze people to death after all. One bastard even talks about letting the little sister grow up so they can use her in other ways. While they're chatting without policing their own words, a familiar voice greets them and demands to see their boss. The scene cuts there and we shift to Chang humming and going about his day. Satisfied that Dojin is finally out of the way and dead for good, his assistant reviews their appointments for today. Apparently, he's free for the most part except for a lunch with another CEO. Hearing that, he's happy because tonight he can enjoy partying to his heart's content at a club under Miss Kang. It's basically senseless chatter until he steps into the building, and as he climbs the stairs, he finds his men being tossed around like playthings. Their blood is splattered everywhere, and the cause of it all is someone he presumed to be dead. Our boy throws him to the ground and tells the guy to crawl back to him like a dog. That bone-chilling order makes the president of the company quiver. Our boy acts like the real leader of the group and takes his seat in the chair. He then repeats his command to the ignorant Chang, who is still processing the weight of that shameless order. Without wasting time, he crawls like a dog. Ruthless as ever, Dojin then orders him to bark, as he deserves to be treated like an animal. His loud and clear command has Chang whining in humiliation. It takes him a second to bark successfully, but our boy is not satisfied. He personally makes sure to turn him into an animal by forcing him to bark repeatedly for everyone to hear. The president is reduced to being less than human, just like the people he once treated that way. Dojin points out that scumbags like him only act obedient on the surface but end up backstabbing you the moment they get a chance. Declaring his filthy name, he chillingly tells the man that his life has been filled with experiences dealing with second-rate humans like him. Pleading and begging for mercy, Chang promises to serve like a loyal dog if necessary. But Dojin has heard enough and delivers a heavy slap across his face. Just that single strike is enough to knock the wind out of him and make him spurt blood. His assistant watches the scene unfold until his name is called. Dojin addresses him as the new boss of the company and advises him to stop working under a bastard like Chang. Knowing how easily men like this turn their backs, he orders the assistant to kill Chang with his full permission. Of course, it's a task too much for a competent servant like him. He apologizes and objects, stating that their leader has many connections, so things will get really bad if he's the one appointed boss instead of Chang. On his behalf, the assistant pleads with Dojin to spare the guy just one more time. However, Dojin doesn't want to play around with meaningless words in front of them. He suggests wrapping Chang's body in a barrel and erasing all evidence by shoving it into the endless ocean. After all, that's exactly the kind of thing these guys excel at doing. Seeing as the boss's men aren't willing to comply, our boy takes a different approach. Dojin threatens the entire group that he'll toss everyone into the gate as monster food if they don't carry out his order. Just the mere mention of that has Chang reduced to a pathetic mess. He can't take it anymore and keeps begging for his life, promising he won't ever betray and will always serve under Dojin. Now this puts the hero in a bit of contemplation. Although he could kill Chang right here and rid himself of all his problems, something about him has changed in this life. Admitting it himself, Dojin has grown softer compared to his merciless past self, so this time he agrees, offering the man a hand. I just know Chang is about to become religious as heck after this, praying he never gets on Dojin's nerves again. He goes on to shake the hero's hand, promising to serve unconditionally from now on. But wait, something is strange. Why is his hand engulfed in steaming hot flames? Yes, though Dojin has softened, he's still ruthless. Looking him dead in the eyes, he reminds the scumbag that this is his final chance. Dojin then proceeds to rip his hand off clean, reducing it to a charred paste. By the end of the meeting, he walks away, ignoring the agonized cries of the president. He does leave them with a final warning: if even a single one of them dares interfere with his family again, Dojin will personally ensure their deaths. As for their new job, they are now forever responsible for protecting his family. Now that's how you handle traitors. Officially speaking, the man known as CO Dojin was just a blip in existence that vanished along with the rift. In reality, he's actually dining at a local fast food place. The government, Hero Association, and all kinds of media outlets quickly moved past him like yesterday's news. They all treated the civilian who entered the rift as a dead man. Even if he came out and told the world he was alive, no one would believe him. Furthermore, resurfacing after a solo rift mission would only bring headaches and trouble his way. That subdued dog Chang is currently helping him find a new and suitable house so he can move leisurely for the time being. Dojin finally got the chance to feed his sister some delicious fast food. He also told her about their plan to move to a better neighborhood, and she could not be happier. Now she can attend kindergarten like kids her age and enter elementary school the next year. When the topic of school came up, little Lee Eunyoung's mood took a turn for the worse. Dojin was alarmed. He is used to slaughtering abominable beasts, but comforting a child is not in his arsenal. He was taken aback when his sister confessed that other kids tease her for being an orphan. Hearing his adorable sister's plight broke Big Bro Dojin's heart. If she doesn't want to associate with mean kids, she doesn't have to. Those little brats will get what's coming to them eventually. Finding out she wouldn't have to attend kindergarten just to be bullied anymore, Lee Eunyoung was ecstatic. Inwardly, Dojin is already devising a plan to send his little sister to a prestigious private school where no one would dare look down on her. That night, CO Dojin discovered that Kim Eunyoung had stashed his grandma and sister in some random motel while he was stuck inside the rift. The bastard nearly broke his back apologizing, reasoning that the motel was under their company's management, so it was safer than any other place. Dojin didn't have the energy to deal with Eunyoung tonight, so he simply entered the room and saw his grandma once more. Little Lee Eunyoung pounced on him with a bear hug, and grandma held his hand with tears streaming down her eyes. She was just glad to see her grandson return alive. At first, the hardened warrior was stunned, but once he felt the warmth from his family, he accepted their love with a smile. Little Lee Eunyoung had taken a liking to this restaurant, so they'd been dining there a lot. Today, she asked questions about Big Bro's job as a hero. When asked if she liked having a hero for a brother, Lee Eunyoung nonchalantly answered that she did not. While it's cool that heroes are strong and brave, they are also constantly in danger fighting terrifying monsters. Sometimes they even die. and little Lee Eunyoung just wants her brother to live with grandma and her for a long, long time. Dojin had been so used to mindless bloodshed, having someone worry about his well-being was a new feeling. In the harsh world of the past, he was the last human survivor fighting monsters and creatures beyond imagination. In the process, he lost many things. Now, in this second chance at life, something incredibly precious has appeared by his side. Feelings he had long forgotten are resurfacing. In this world, maybe he can live happily, maybe he can finally enjoy a quiet life filled with joy and love. While he was feeling warm inside, Korea's Hero Association was in shambles. Tae Wong, founder of the Korea Hero Association and director of the World Hero Federation, had been stressing over the recent rift incident, or rather the lack of one. Their best people had investigated the site, but no new information was found. Feeling clueless about the state of his territory deeply frustrated the founder. It's not far-fetched to believe that a spontaneously disappearing rift could potentially reappear at any time. His assistant tried to agree with his worries, remarking that it might have been better if a wave had occurred, at least then they wouldn't have to deal with so many unknown variables. Director Tae Wong cut her off before his anger grew. While he was concerned about uncertainties, he thought it fortunate that no one had been harmed. Tae Wong is one of the top 100 most respected and strongest heroes in the world. It's widely speculated that if he ever ran for president, he would easily win with the most votes in history. His words and influence alone could topple domestic conglomerates if he wished. Thankfully, his interests lie neither in political power nor in corporate wealth. The only thing he truly cares about is the safety of his people. In other words, he's the real deal. Even if it takes time, he insists on a more thorough investigation of the rift's perimeter. The residents nearby have already agreed to sell their properties to the association, so that won't be a problem. As a consolation, Tae Wong wants to offer them more than market price for their homes, the least they could do after causing such inconvenience. All reliable sources have relayed that multiple rifts have begun appearing in different countries. No matter how you look at it, something big is happening. The United States and China have already entered the control stages of their rifts. Among the major nations, the United Kingdom is facing the biggest problem. While reliable and veteran heroes have been dispatched to clear the other rifts, the United Kingdom squad was simply hot garbage. Speaking of them, the month-long mission to get rid of the UK rift has finally crumbled in a catastrophic defeat. The UK rift wave occurrence has officially begun. The city and its people are going about their day like they normally would. Amongst the crowd was Seo Dojin, blending in with the pedestrians. Today, his destination is his favorite shop in the Hero Complex. When he entered the door, the dude manning the counter gave him a greeting by instinct but froze in shock upon seeing his face. Every strand of hair on his body stood in terror at the sight of the black-haired young man. Today, his manager is in the store, so he won't have to deal with this sadistic customer alone. The manager promptly closed the paper he was reading and lifted his gaze. His voice was controlled but tinged with anger. This is the guy who's been forcing his pushover cashier into buying low-grade crystals. Dojin lazily removed his backpack and tossed it on the ground. It's actually good that the manager is here so the sale of his magic crystals would proceed faster. Mr. Manager expected another batch of low-grade crystals to spill on the floor. He's not interested in such small-time business. Dojin does not like being turned away when all he wants is fair trade. The manager or any other sane business owner cannot afford to accept just a 1% fee. It would be better if the young man just left. Dojin asserted that refusing to do business with him would be a massive mistake that Mr. Manager would regret. The manager continued shooing the young man away, not even bothering to look at the bag. This is the last warning he'll give before things go down. In response, Dojin kicked the backpack, spilling its contents across the tiles. Being experienced crystal traders, both the cashier and the manager immediately recognized the properties of those rocks. That crude bag was actually filled with the hero's magic crystals, a legendary treasure that money cannot buy. Dojin has a rough idea of how much these things are worth. He knows he's holding premium stuff. You see, the hero's magic crystal was once used by an infamous Mexican drug lord, Querzaman, in New Age drug manufacturing. One night, a laboratory accident changed the course of his life and the world's perspective on such a little rock. The hero's magic crystal caused Querzaman to awaken as a powerful hero. Since then, the crystal has become a priceless item for hero awakenings and mana enhancement. Such an incredibly rare energy source can only be classified as an ultra-high-end product. As a power move, Dojin ordered the schmucks to pack their stuff back up, and he left. Mr. Manager quickly changed his dismissive and arrogant tone into a welcoming one. He even escorted the young man to their VIP seats and offered drinks while his cashier polished the crystals. Dojin enjoyed flipping the situation on its head. One second he was being driven away, the next he was sipping on an iced beverage. His opening demand was full price with a 0.5% commission. As soon as the manager showed any sign of balking, he threatened to pull the deal. In prior trades, Dojin had agreed to 1%. Now he was lowering that already abysmal rate even further, frankly just out of annoyance. In response, the manager lowered his head and tried to give the sincerest apology he could muster. But Dojin was tired of hearing empty apologies. They could either accept his rate or he'd take his business elsewhere. It was that simple. At the counter, the cashier was inwardly cursing Dojin for being such a rude prick. Seeing that his acting wouldn't convince the kid to give him a bigger cut, the manager locked in and gave a lengthy lecture about magic crystal markets and pricing. Dojin didn't have time to listen to such long-winded yapping. He finished his drink and got up from his seat, making the manager panic. Feeling the deal of a lifetime slipping away from his fingers, the manager offered a 9% commission. It didn't work, so he proposed 8%. This continued from 8 to 7, 6, and 5. In that range, his shop wouldn't be making any profit at all. While the manager was in the pits of despair, Sao Dojin pounced and agreed to settle for 1% out of respect for their past dealings. Inwardly, the manager wanted to scream and curse the blatant extortionist, but he just couldn't let go of the product. The next words out of Dojin's mouth nearly made the manager piss his pants in excitement. Aside from the one he brought today, he had about 7 more bags of those priceless crystals. With that, the contract was quickly produced and signed. After a few minutes of officiating the deal, 67 billion won entered Sao Dojin's bank account. That's about $48 million. At this rate, his 110 billion won house didn't seem so far off. The problem was that getting more high-grade magic crystals through normal gates was a time sink. If he could find a way to freely travel through rift zones, he could easily farm treasures like a madman. While looking at his phone screen, an administrative message was sent out to everyone in the country. The wave outbreak in the southern region of the United Kingdom had finally been announced to the general public. In the meantime, everyone was banned from traveling to the UK. After reading about a real problem in the real world, Dojin lost interest in messing with the shop manager. In the past, no matter the country or which association was involved, he might have intervened to seal the rift himself. But he's not that guy anymore. He has more fulfilling matters to attend to. Tonight, dinner is on Dojin, and they're getting expensive meat. Little Lee Yunyung's mouth watered at the sight of pork and beef marbling over the grill. The expensive meat and succulent side dishes just kept on coming to the table. Worried that they were spending too much given the price tag on the menu, Grandma slowed down and asked her grandson if this was okay. 250,000 won for 100 grams is pretty steep. Dojin dismissed her worries right away. After making a killing with his crystal harvest, they could eat as much as they wanted, and it wouldn't even make a dent in his bank account. Lee Yunyung's first bite made her fall in love with the taste of the wildly luxurious beef. Dojin kept adding more and more to the grill as Grandma watched in apprehension. Hell, another package of fresh ribs, prime ribeye, strip loin, and skirt meat was on its way to the table soon. At this point, the scale was just ridiculous. How could 2.5 people even finish that much food? While Grandma was underestimating the appetite of the protagonist. To ease her worries, little Lee Yunyung convinced Grandma to give the expensive stuff a try. Unable to refuse the offer of her sweet girl, Grandma caved. One bite of that expensive meat was all it took for all her worries to dissipate into nothing. Afterward, the happy family enjoyed their extravagant dinner filled with smiles and laughter. Unbeknownst to Dojin, an attention-grabbing young woman just entered the restaurant. The necks of the other guests almost broke wherever she passed by. The woman made a beeline towards Sao Dojin and decisively called his attention. She just wanted to talk with him for a moment. Nothing more, nothing less. Before she could elaborate on her reason, Dojin cut her off for interrupting his family's dinner. If she wants to say something to him, she should come back when the freaking meal is over. Juyeon pulled out the name card, hoping that the young man would change his tone upon her name. Much to his dismay, Dojin just kept on grilling and eating meat, disregarding her presence altogether. And so, the renowned S-rank hunter swallowed her pride and patiently sat in the restaurant's waiting room. With a star like her sitting within normal people's vicinity, she naturally became the center of attention. Men and women kept stealing glances at the woman standing at the pinnacle of heroism. She's not only fourth in the national rankings for S-class heroes, but most people would also even place her within the top 10 most beautiful heroes in the world list. Every civilian around was asking the same thing in their minds. Who the hell is making Juyeon wait? Ignoring the blatant whispers around her, Juyeon recalled the brief interaction she had just a few minutes ago. As far as she knows, Sao Dojin entered his first gate 2 months ago. He made it out alive and is now under suspicion of becoming awakened. He was widely believed to have died in the recent Mappo Rift incident, but here he is alive and eating with his family. Aside from all the details that don't seem to make sense, a single sharp look from the young man had an S-ranker like Juyeon on edge. A newly awakened guy cannot possibly reach S-rank in under 2 months, right? Even the oil tycoon Kafmore, who spent his wealth on magic stones, took about 5 months to reach the peak. Rationalizing what she felt, Juyeon reckoned that Dojin must have some kind of unknown special ability.
Finally, Dojun, Grandma, and little Yunyung had filled their bellies and lifted their mood. Near the exit, Juyun walked over to finally have a conversation with the mysterious young man. Before she could open her mouth to speak, another party sauntered into the restaurant with an air of superiority. Dojun's eyes turned sharper than usual at the sight of the man. This skeevy-looking bastard did not expect to see Dojun alive and kicking after their excursion in one of the deadly gates, the lunatic Kang Chiol. He's actually quite amused by Dojun's cockroach-like resilience. Even Juyeon seemed to recognize the troublemaker in a single glance. In the middle of the restaurant, tensions rose as silence filled the air. Dojun chose to ignore the bastard's shallow insults and called Juyeon over. Kang Chiol was taken aback to see an S-rank hero speaking with the cockroach. Dojun requested that she take care of his family for a little bit. All she has to do is flag a taxi so they can ride away and go home. It would be more convenient if they were far away while he collects an overdue debt with a mongrel. Thankfully, Juyeon is a very reasonable young woman. She did what Dojun asked and assured Grandma and the little girl that everything would be fine. She waved at them goodbye, but their concern was evident. Juyeon awkwardly stood there as the taxi departed.